In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to crochet these little pants, leggings, or trousers for baby boys and girls between 3 and 6 months old. They're part of the little Ivy Baby set, which includes the matching little cardigan sweater and the matching baby blanket. Stay tuned. In another tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make the matching little hat and the matching booties. In the information box, I'll go ahead and leave you links to all of those tutorials, along with the link to my Etsy shop if you prefer written pattern. Thank you so much for your support. Now, these little pants, like I said, are for 3 to 6 months, but you can easily make them smaller or bigger from a newborn size and up to 24 months using standard size measurements that I'm going to leave in the information box and just following the same pattern. So make sure to look there. To make these little pants, and actually the whole set, this is the yarn that I used. This is DK weight yarn, but you can also use any number 3 yarn or 8 ply. For the little pants in the 3 to 6 month size, I used a total of 102 grams. In the main color, which is the pink color, I used about 90 grams, and in the secondary color, which is the white, I used about 12 grams. Depending on the size that you make, you may need less or more. Okay, let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe and activate the notifications bell. Thanks so much for watching. To begin and make these baby pants to match the little Ivy baby cardigan, I'll be using this 3.5mm crochet hook, and today I'm using this DK weight yarn. You can also use any number 3 yarn or 8 ply. At the beginning of the video, I showed you the yarn that I'm using, and I told you how much yarn we're going to need for the size that we're making here in this tutorial. So here to begin, the first thing that we need to do is we need to make a chain. Now, I'm making this chain based on standard measurements for the waist. If you want to make your baby pants for your baby, all you need to do is just measure the waist, and based on that, go ahead and make your chain. Make sure that your chain is also in multiples of 2. Here for the 3 to 6 month size, I have 80 chains. This chain without stretching, it's measuring about 42 centimeters, which is about 16.5 inches. In the information box, I'll go ahead and leave you standard measurements so that you can make your baby pants from a newborn size and up to 24 months. I will also leave another option for you to make your baby pants, which is easier. All you have to do is just change your hook size. So here, to begin, like I said, I have 80 chains. To begin, the first thing that we need to do is make sure that the chain is not twisted, because we're going to join to the first chain. Now we're joined. I'm going to remove this. So here to begin, I'm going to chain 1. Now insert your hook back through this first stitch, the same stitch that we joined into, and make a half double crochet. Now for the rest of the half double crochets that I'm going to make, I'm going to go through the back of the chain. The back of the chain has this little bump right here. That's where I'm going to be inserting my hook to make my half double crochets. If you rather just go through the top loop like this here, then you can do that too. I'm going to go through the back of the chain. So here, yarn over and into the back of the next chain, insert your hook and make a half double crochet. Half double crochet into the next chain, half double crochet into the next, and so on. When you go through the back of the chain, it gives it a nicer finish here, especially for this part, because this is the waist. For the waist, I'm going to be using the white yarn, and then the rest I'm going to use that peachy pink color to match the little sweater. So continue like this and just make 1 half double crochet for each chain. I will meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of row 1 of the waistband. I have a total of 80 half double crochets. Now to finish this row, go on top of the first half double crochet and join with a slip stitch. And here is row 1. Now for row 2, chain 1. In this row, what I'm going to do is front post and back post half double crochet. So beginning with the first one, here I'm going to make a front post half double crochet. Into the next, a back post half double crochet, front post half double crochet into the next, back post half double crochet into the next, and so on. Continue like this for the second row. I will meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of the second row. In this row I did front post and back post half double crochets. My last stitch is a back post. I have 80 stitches. To finish, go on top of the first half double crochet and join with a slip stitch. Now for row 3 we're going to repeat the same thing. Chain 1, begin with a front post half double crochet, back post half double crochet into the next, front post half double crochet into the next, and so on. Continue, finish this third row. I'll meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of the third row. I have 80 stitches. To finish, go on top of the first stitch and join with a slip stitch. And this is how I finish this third row. Now I'm going to make one more row here for the waist. For row 4, I'm going to increase 4 extra stitches. And that is because I want multiples of 3 at the end of the 4th row. So right now I have 80 stitches. 80 stitches is not divisible by 3. If I add 1 stitch, that gives me 81, which is divisible by 3. But I don't want this number. I want an even number. So I'm going to add 4 stitches instead. So 84 divided by 3, that's 28. This is the number that I want. You need to make sure that whatever number you have here at the end of row 4, it's multiples of 3, but also when you divide that number, this number here needs to be an even number or divisible by 2. So here, to continue, I'm going to increase 4 extra stitches here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 20 half double crochets. I'm not going to make front post or back post stitches anymore. I'm just going to make half double crochets all around. So chain 2, and beginning on top of the first stitch, which is the first stitch that we joined into, I'm going to make a half double crochet. In total, I'm going to make 19. So that's 1, 19. I have 19 half double crochets. Now into the next stitch, I'm going to make 2 half double crochets. So here's my first increase. And then again, I'm going to repeat the same thing. I'm going to make 19 half double crochets. That's 1, 19. Now into the next stitch, which is the 20th stitch, make 2 half double crochets. So here's my second increase. I need to continue and do the same thing. I'm going to make 19 half double crochets, and then I'm going to go ahead and make an increase. And then here at the end, I should finish with an increase here at the end. So continue and finish this 4th row where I'm increasing 4 extra stitches. Like I said, the important thing here at the end of this 4th row is that you have multiples of 3, and when you divide whatever number you have, that it's an even number. So go ahead and finish the 4th row. I'll meet you at the end. I finished row 4. Here at the end, I finished with an increase, and I have a total of 84 stitches at the end of this 4th row. Remember, the important thing here is that you have multiples of 3 at the end of this 3rd row, and whatever number you have, when you divide that number by 3, you have an even number. So here, to continue, I'm going to continue with the primary color, which is the peachy pink color here. I'm going to insert my hook into the first stitch, which is the same stitch that I joined into at the end of row 4. And here I'm going to begin the body of the little pants now. Here I'm going to chain 2, and right into this same stitch, I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the same stitch and grab a loop. Take 2 loops off. Yarn over, insert your hook again, take 2 loops off, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, take 2 loops off. I have 4 loops on the hook, close, chain 2, then a single crochet into this same stitch. This is the 3 double crochet cluster stitch. which is the same stitch pattern that I used for the little jacket and the baby blanket. This one here. In the information box, you'll find the link to this tutorial. Now, to continue, I'm going to skip 2 half double crochets, and into the third one, I'm going to yarn over, insert the hook into that third stitch, grab a loop, take 2 loops off, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, grab a loop, take 2 loops off, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, take 2 loops off, 4 loops on the hook, close, chain 2, and then a single crochet all into this same stitch. Again, skip 1, 2, and into the third stitch, make another cluster stitch, 4 loops, close, chain 2, single crochet. One more time, skip 2 and into the third stitch, make your cluster stitch. And this is how you're going to continue for row 1 of the body of the pants. Continue. I'll meet you here at the end. One thing, before you continue, place a stitch marker. This is going to mark the front of the baby pants, and from now on this is going to be the wrong side. This here is also going to be the back side of the baby pants, and this is going to be the front. I'm here at the end of the first row here of the body. I have 28 shells. Now here at the end, I'm going to skip these last 2 half double crochets, and to finish I'm going to go here to the beginning where I did the 2 chains. Here's the first shell. I have the 2 chains here. Insert your hook right there and join with a slip stitch. And this is how I finish row 1 of the body with a total of 28 shells. Now for row 2, I'm going to chain 2 and turn. Row 2 is what we're going to repeat from here on. You always make 2 chains and then turn. To begin each row, you're going to always go here to the first shell, and right here we have the 2 chains. This is where you're going to make your cluster stitch. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into the chain 2, grab a loop, take 2 loops off, leave 2 loops, yarn over, grab a loop, take 2 loops off, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, grab a loop, take 2 loops off, 4 loops on the hook, close, chain 2, and then a single crochet all into that chain 2 space. Now into each chain 2 space of each shell or each cluster stitch here, you're going to make a cluster stitch. There, 4 loops, close, chain 2, then a single crochet. Again, we have the next shell in the chain 2 space here. Make your cluster stitch. I'm going to call these shells or cluster stitches. They're the same thing. 4 loops, chain 2, single crochet. Again, in the chain 2 space of the next stitch, make a cluster stitch. 4 loops, close, 2 chains, single crochet. Continue like this for this second row. I'll meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of the second row. This is on the wrong side. I have 28 cluster stitches. To finish each row from here on, you're going to go here to the beginning, insert your hook into the chain 2 space here, and join with a slip stitch. And that's how you're going to finish each row from here on. Now, to begin each row, you're going to chain 2 and turn. Now from here on, like I said, row 2 is what we're going to repeat. In the chain 2 space of each one of the cluster stitches, you're going to make your cluster stitch. So to make the first cluster stitch, yarn over, insert your hook into the first chain 2 space, grab a loop, take 2 loops off, leave 2 loops, yarn over, take 2 loops off, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, take 2 loops off, 4 loops on the hook, close, chain 2, and then a single crochet all into this chain 2 space. Again, we have the next shell. In the chain 2 space, you're going to yarn over, insert your hook, take 2 loops off, leave 2 loops, yarn over, take 2 loops, leave 3 loops, yarn over, take 2 loops off, 4 loops on the hook, close, chain 2, then a single crochet. Again, we have the next chain 2 space of the next cluster stitch. Repeat the same thing. And this is how you're going to continue for the rest of this third row. Now to finish, remember you always go here to the beginning. Here are the 2 chains, join with a slip stitch, chain 2, turn, and then repeat the same thing. Now I'm not sure how many rows I'm going to do here. Continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do for my little pants. So I will meet you at the end of that row. And remember, at the end of each row, we're always going to have 28 of these cluster stitches. I'm almost done with this part. I have done a total of 16 rows. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Row 16 was worked on the wrong side. Now this part here, it's measuring from the top of the waist to the end of the last row. It's measuring about 17 centimeters, which is about 6.75 inches. Now I still have about 3 centimeters left from the total measurement, which is the rise measurement from the top of the waist. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and make 1 or 2 more rows where I increase. So I'm going to show you how to increase with this stitch. This is to give it more room here around the hip area, and it's optional. If you want to continue and just leave it like this, you can. I'm going to go ahead and increase 2 more stitches. I have a total of 28 shells right now. So for row 17, I'm going to increase 1 stitch, and then for row 18, I'm also going to increase. Let me show you how we're going to work this part. Now, if you're making your baby pants in any other size, following the measurements that I'm going to leave in the information box, or if you're following your own measurements, you're going to do this until you have about 1.25 inches left from the rise measurement. The rise measurement, you take it from the top of the waist down to the bottom here of the last row. I have, like I said, 1.25 inches left, or about 3 centimeters. So I'm going to do these last couple of rows where I increase 2 stitches. The important thing here is however many stitches that you add, make sure that it's an even number, because it'll be easier to divide the legs once we do this part. So here for row 17, I'm going to chain 2 and turn. Row 17 is being worked on the right side. Now to increase with this stitch pattern, you do it here at the beginning or you do it at the end. I'm going to do it here at the beginning. So let me show you. Here right next to the chain 2, I'm going to insert my hook into this space right there, and I'm going to make a cluster stitch here. I have 4 loops, close, chain 2, single crochet. Now I can continue and work a cluster stitch in the chain 2 space of each one of these stitches like this. And that's how you increase for this stitch right there. Same thing into the next cluster stitch. And so on. At the end of row 17, you're going to have an extra stitch, which is this one here. So we're going to end this row with a total of 29 cluster stitches, or 29 shells. I will meet you at the end of this row. I'm here at the end of row 17. This row is being worked on the right side, and I increased an extra stitch here at the beginning. I have 29 cluster stitches. To finish, go here to the side of the first cluster stitch and join with a slip stitch. And this is how I finish row 17. Now for row 18, I'm going to chain 2 and turn. Now in this row, I'm going to increase an extra cluster stitch, and I'm going to do it right here into this space that's between the 2 chains and the first cluster stitch. So insert your hook right there and make a cluster stitch. 4 loops, close, 2 chains, single crochet. Now I'm going to continue and work a cluster stitch into each chain 2 of each of the previous cluster stitches. From here on, everything is the same. You just make a cluster stitch into each one of the shells here. Continue and finish row 18. I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I'm here at the end of the 18th row. This row is being worked on the wrong side. Here's my last cluster stitch. I have a total of 30. To finish the row, go here to the beginning and join with a slip stitch. Now for row 19, I'm going to chain 2 and turn. Now for row 19, I'm just going to make one cluster stitch in the chain 2 space of each one of the cluster stitches, so that at the end of this row I have 30. After this row, I'm going to separate the legs. So here, just continue and work one cluster stitch in the chain 2 space of each one of the cluster stitches. At the end of this row, you're going to have 30 cluster stitches. Finish this row. I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished row 19. This completes this part. I have the measurement that I need for the 3 to 6 month size. It's measuring from the top of the waist to the end of the last row. It's measuring about 20 centimeters, which is almost 8 inches. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to separate the legs, but first I'm going to work the crutch here. Now if you're making your baby pants in any other size, make sure that your last row is worked on the right side, just like I did here for row 19, so that the rest of the little pins are the same as mine. So here to begin, let me tell you where you need to place your stitch markers. Here I have marked 3 cluster stitches. This is where I finished, so I have 2 on this side and 1 on this side. Between this stitch marker and the next, I have 12 cluster stitches for the first leg. Between this stitch marker and this one, I have 3 cluster stitches. Between this stitch marker and this one, I have 12 cluster stitches for the second leg. So that's 12 cluster stitches for each leg, and then 3 cluster stitches for the front and for the back. So to begin here, I'm going to call this row 20, which is the crotch area here. So I'm going to chain 2 and turn. Here I'm going to work these 2 cluster stitches. So work the first one into the first chain 2 space of the first cluster stitch. There's 1. This row is being worked on the wrong side. Now to separate the leg, I'm going to chain 2, skip 12 cluster stitches, and into the next one after the stitch marker, make a cluster stitch. Now I only chained 2 here because I only plan to add 1 cluster stitch in this chain 2 space. You can add more to add to the leg measurement. For every 2 chains, you add 1 cluster stitch. There's 1. That's 2 and 3. Now chain 2, skip 12 cluster stitches for the second leg, and into the next cluster stitch here after the stitch marker, make a cluster stitch. There. Now chain 2 and finish the cluster stitch. To finish the row, go here to the beginning and join with a slip stitch. Now I've already cut my yarn, so pass your yarn through this last loop, and we have separated the legs, and this is how it looks. Once we're done, we're going to leave a tail end here when we make the first leg so that we can join these stitches. I'll show you that once we get to that part at the end of the tutorial. So now this is the front and this is the back side. We're going to go here to this side. This is the left side with the back side facing me. I'm going to start here in the chain 2 space. I'm going to work this first row of the leg on the wrong side. So insert your hook like this into the chain 2 space, and here I'm going to start with 2 chains and then make my cluster stitch. Like I said, you can add more chains here between the legs. For every 2 chains, you make 1 cluster stitch. There. Now, so that there is no gap between this first
cluster stitch, and the next one that I'm going to do here, I'm going to make a double crochet, but I'm not going to close it. Let me show you. I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to insert my hook into this cluster stitch. This is the cluster stitch that's before the stitch marker. So right into this space there, insert your hook, grab a loop and take 2 loops off. Leave 2 loops on the hook. Now yarn over and go into the chain 2 of the first cluster stitch out of the 12 that we left and make your cluster stitch. There. Now I'm going to close the cluster stitch and I'm also going to close the double crochet. And this is how it looks. Now I'm going to complete my cluster stitch here and then continue all around the leg, working cluster stitches into the chain 2 space of each of the cluster stitches. So continue like this all around. I will meet you right here at this other end to show you how we're going to finish this first row for the first leg. I'm here at the end of the first row for the first leg. Here's my last cluster stitch. I have 13 cluster stitches. Now before I finish, I'm going to make a cluster stitch. This would be an increase and I'm going to do it right here into the next cluster stitch after the stitch marker. Into this space right here, I'm going to work a cluster stitch. Again, this would be an increase so that at the end of this first row, I finish with 14 cluster stitches. Now to finish, we're going to go here to the beginning where we have the 2 chains. We're going to join with a slip stitch. And this is how I finish this first row for the first leg with a total of 14 cluster stitches. From here on, I'm going to continue with these 14 cluster stitches. For row 2, I'm going to chain 2 and turn. This second row is what we're going to repeat from here on. So you always start with 2 chains, then turn, and into each chain 2 space of each cluster stitch, you make a cluster stitch. This part here is the same how we work the body of the little pants. We're just going to continue in the round working 14 cluster stitches. Continue. Let's finish this second row. I will meet you here at the end to show you once again how to finish and how to start each row from here on, since you're going to continue on your own and work the rest of the leg. I'm here at the end of the second row. For the first leg, I have 14 cluster stitches. Now to finish each row, we always go here to the beginning. These are the 2 chains. Here you're going to make a slip stitch. Now to start each row, you always chain 2 and then turn. Beginning into the chain 2 of the first cluster stitch here, you make your first cluster stitch. And you do the same thing for each of the cluster stitches of the previous row, so that at the end of each row you always have 14 cluster stitches like this. Now to finish the row, you're going to go here to the beginning, join with a slip stitch right here where we have the 2 chains, and then to start each row, you chain 2, turn, and then repeat the same thing. Now for the 3 to 6 month size, I'm not sure how many rows I'm going to do here, but continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do. I'm going to do this until I have about 3 centimeters, which is about 1 inch left, so that I can make the bottom of the leg, the cuff, in the same way that I did the waistband. If you're making your baby pants in any other size, you're just going to continue until you have the measurement minus about 3 centimeters, like I said, which is about 1.25 inches to make the bottom of the leg. So continue watching. I will let you know exactly how many rows I'm going to do here. So I will meet you at the end of that row. I'm almost done with the leg. I have done a total of 17 rows. Row 17 was worked on the wrong side. As it is, it's measuring from the first row up to the last row. This part here, it's measuring about 15 centimeters, which is about 6 inches. I still have about 3 centimeters left, which is a little bit over 1 inch. So what I'm going to do next is the cuff. And I'm going to do it like this, how I did the waistband. So to begin here, at the end of row 17, I just joined to the beginning. Now I'm just going to chain 2 and turn. the 2 chains counts as 1 stitch. In this row, all I'm going to do are half double crochets, and we're going to make them into the chain 2 space of each one of these cluster stitches. So beginning with the first one, make 2 half double crochets into the next. In the chain 2 space, make 2 half double crochets, and so on. Continue like this. Finish this first row of the cuff. I'll meet you at the end. I finished this first row. In this row, I did 2 half double crochets into each one of the cluster stitches. Including the 2 chains, I have 29 half double crochets. Now I'm going to go ahead and change yarn color. So at the end of row 1, I just join to the beginning with a slip stitch and cut my yarn. If you're not changing yarn color, then just go ahead, join with a slip stitch and chain 1. To begin here, I'm going to go here before the chain 2, and I'm going to grab a loop. I'm going to use the white yarn now and chain 1. Now, beginning around the post of the 2 chains here, make a front post half double crochet. Now I have the next 2 half double crochets, so I'm going to make a back post half double crochet into the next, front post half double crochet into the next, back post half double crochet into the next, front post half double crochet into the next, and so on. This is how I'm going to continue all around for this second row. At the end of this row, I'm going to have 29 stitches. Continue, I'll meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of the second row. In this row, I did front post and back post half double crochets. Here's my last stitch. I have a front post half double crochet, and I have 29 stitches. Now to finish this row, you're going to go here to the beginning on top of the first stitch, join with a slip stitch. Now for row 3 and 4, we're going to repeat the same thing we did in the second row. You're going to chain 1, and beginning with this first stitch, make a front post half double crochet into the next, back post half double crochet, front post half double crochet into the next, back post half double crochet into the next, front post half double crochet into the next, and so on. That's how you're going to continue all around. To finish the row, you're going to go here to the beginning, join with a slip stitch, chain 1, and then repeat the same thing for row 4. So go ahead and finish these 2 rows. I'll come back and show you what we need to do next. I finished row 3 and 4. At the end of the 4th row, I just joined to the beginning with a slip stitch, cut my yarn, and passed my yarn through this last loop. And this part here is done along with the leg, and this is how it looks. Now we're going to do the exact same thing here with the second leg. So we're going to begin here. This is the back side. We're going to go here from the wrong side. I'm going to insert my hook in the chain 2 space between the legs. Now here, make sure you leave a nice long tail, because what we're going to do after we finish the pants with the long tail here, we're going to join this gap that's going to be there between the legs. I'm going to show you at the end of the tutorial how to close that gap. So here, bring a loop through, chain 2. Now make a cluster stitch into this same space. Chain 2, and then a single crochet. Now I'm going to make a double crochet here, but I'm not going to close the stitch. I'm going to close it when I make my first cluster stitch here. So this is so that there's no gap between this first cluster stitch and the next one. So here, yarn over, insert your hook into this cluster stitch that's before the stitch marker, into the same space where I did this cluster stitch for the crutch. So in there, insert your hook, grab a loop, take 2 loops off, leave 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, go into the next shell, which is the first shell out of the 12 that we left for the second leg. Insert your hook there, take 2 loops off, yarn over, take 2 loops off, yarn over, take 2 loops off. I have 5 loops on the hook, close, chain 2, then a single crochet. Here's the second shell. Here I'm just going to continue all around for this first row, just making cluster stitches into each chain 2 space. Continue. I will meet you here at the end of this first row to show you what we need to do next. I'm here at the end of row 1 for the second leg. Here's my last cluster stitch. I have a total of 13 cluster stitches, including this first one that I did in the chain 2 space. Now here at the end, just like I did with the first leg, I'm going to add an extra cluster stitch so that at the end of this first row I finish with 14 cluster stitches. So this extra cluster stitch, I'm going to make it right here into this space that you can see right after the stitch marker. This space here is the same space where I did this cluster stitch for the crotch area here. So into this same space right there, make a cluster stitch. There. Now to finish the row, go into the chain 2 space here and join with a slip stitch. And this is how I finish row 1. I have 14 cluster stitches. From here on, the rest is the same how we did the first leg. So to start you off here, I'm going to chain 2 for row 2 and turn. Now into each chain 2 space of each cluster stitch, you make a cluster stitch like this. At the end of this row, you're going to have 14 cluster stitches, and you're going to do this for a total of 17 rows, and then you're going to do the bottom of the leg, and you're going to do a total of 4 rows for this part here. So go ahead and make the second leg exactly how we did the first leg. I'll come back and show you the finished baby pants and then give you the finished measurements. I finished the second leg. I did it exactly in the same way how I showed you with the first leg. So these little pants are all done, and this is how they look. Now here around the waist, all I did was just make this long chain. This is about 150 chains, and I just made the chain with a crochet hook, the same size that I used for the baby pants. This is the back side. You can also weave a ribbon here if you like. I like to do a little chain here with the same yarn. Now, let me show you how to close the gap between the legs. To do this, we're going to go here from the wrong side. We have this tail end that we left when we started one of the legs. With a yarn needle here, we're going to join the 2 sides. Now, there is no right or wrong way of doing this. The important thing here is that we close this gap. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go here to this side. We have this shell. So through the center, insert your needle, and through the center of the next one on the other side, insert your needle. And then go through the end here of the same and make a stitch there. So 2 stitches per shell. I think that'll be enough to close this gap. Reinforce the last stitch here, and then just hide your ends. And this part here is done, and this is how it looks. Perfect. So now let me give you the finished measurements. The total length from the top of the waist to the end here of the cuff, it's measuring about 36 centimeters, which is about 14 inches. Leg length from the crotch area to the end of the leg, it's measuring about 16.5 centimeters, which is about 6 inches. The width of the leg, just the top, it's measuring about 10.5 centimeters, which is about 4 inches. Now, from the top of the waist to the crotch here, it's measuring about 19.5 centimeters, which is about 7.75 inches. Now, the hip, just the top, it's measuring about 22.5 centimeters, which is about 8 7/8 of an inch. Now, the waist, just the top, it's about 21 centimeters, which is about 8.25 inches. So based on these measurements, these little pants, leggings, or trousers are for baby boys and girls between 3 and 6 months old. Now you can easily make them smaller or bigger using standard baby pants measurement that I'm going to leave in the information box. I will also leave another method, which is just changing your hook size, and I'll leave the hook size that you can use for the different sizes. So just look in the information box. So these little pants are all done to match the little sweater. This is the little Ivy cardigan sweater. In the information box, I'll leave the link to this tutorial along with the matching baby blanket. This is the little Ivy baby set. Okay, so this was today's tutorial. I hope you like it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.